The knife felt heavier in my hand than it should have, cutting through the overpriced prime rib, while my mother-in-law's voice sliced through what little dignity I had left. "Richard, dear, when are you going to get a real job? This little construction hobby of yours is so quaint." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Rich Forrest, 42 years old, and I've been listening to Martha Whitman's condescending bullshit for 15 years. Tonight, sitting in their gaudy mansion with its gold-plated everything and portraits of dead relatives who probably made their money selling snake oil, I decided I'd had enough. "It's not a hobby, Martha," I said, keeping my voice level while my wife Erica shot me a warning look across the mahogany table that probably cost more than most people's cars. "It's a business." "Of course it is, sweetheart." Martha's smile was sharper than the steak knife. She turned to her husband Clarence, a bloated toad in an expensive suit who'd inherited his real estate empire and run half of it into the ground. "Remember when you went through your little entrepreneurial phase, darling?" "So adorable." Clarence chuckled, his jowls shaking. "Boys will be boys, Martha. Though at Richard's age one would hope for more substantial pursuits." My daughter Sammy, home from college for the weekend, looked uncomfortable. She knew something the others didn't, that my little construction hobby had just been acquired by Morrison Tech for $12 million. The papers had been signed yesterday. I'd been saving this news for the right moment. "Speaking of substantial," Erica said, her voice tight with barely concealed irritation, "Brandon should be joining us for dessert. You remember Dr. Cates from the hospital, don't you, Rich?" I remembered Brandon Cates all right. Slick surgeon, expensive suits, the kind of guy who pronounced his name like it should be followed by applause. What I didn't know yet was why my wife's colleague was having dessert with my family on a Saturday night. "How wonderful!" Martha clapped her hands together like a trained seal. "A doctor! Now there's a respectable profession. Erica, you work with such accomplished people." The doorbell rang, and Erica practically leaped from her chair. "That'll be Brandon. I'll get it." She returned moments later with Dr. Brandon Cates in tow. 6 feet of manufactured charm in a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my truck payment. His smile was perfect, his handshake firm, and his eyes held that particular brand of arrogance that came from years of people thanking him for the privilege of his attention. "Richard," he said, gripping my hand just a little too tightly, "Erica's told me so much about you. The construction business, right? Must be rewarding work." The way he said rewarding made it sound like a communicable disease. "It has its moments," I replied, watching as he took the seat next to my wife. Too close. His hand brushed hers as he reached for his wine glass, and she didn't pull away. "Brandon just got back from a conference in Switzerland," Erica said, her cheeks flushed. "He was presenting his research on cardiac procedures." "How impressive," Clarence boomed. "International recognition. That's what I call success." "It was nothing, really," Brandon said with false modesty. "Just sharing some techniques I've developed. Though I have to say, the skiing in Gstaad was incredible. Erica, you'd love it there." My wife's eyes lit up. "It sounds amazing. I've always wanted to ski in Switzerland." "We should plan a trip," Brandon said casually, as if including my wife in his travel plans was the most natural thing in the world. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The way they looked at each other, the casual intimacy of their conversation, the fact that my wife had invited another man to family dinner without asking me. It all added up to a picture I didn't want to see. "Richard," Martha's voice cut through my thoughts, "you're being awfully quiet. Cat got your tongue?" I looked around the table at these people who'd spent years treating me like hired help at my own wife's family gatherings. Clarence with his inherited money and failed business sense, Martha with her social climbing and barely concealed contempt, Brandon with his surgical precision and wandering hands, and Erica, my wife of 15 years, who was looking at another man like he'd just offered her the moon. "Actually," I said, setting down my wine glass with deliberate care, "I have some news to share." "Oh?" Martha raised an eyebrow. "Finally decided to apply for a job with a real company?" "Not exactly." I pulled out my phone and opened the email I'd been saving. "I got this yesterday from Morrison Tech. They're acquiring my company." I slid the phone across the table to Clarence. His face went from smug to confused to pale in the space of 10 seconds. $12 million, he read aloud, his voice cracking slightly. Base purchase price of $12 million, with performance bonuses potentially reaching $15 million over 3 years. The silence that followed was beautiful. Martha's fork clattered against her plate. Brandon's perfect smile faltered. Erica stared at me like I'd just grown a second head. That's impossible," Martha stammered. "You build houses." "I design and manufacture prefabricated smart homes with integrated renewable energy systems," I corrected. "Turns out there's a market for that. Who knew?" Clarence was still staring at the phone screen. This is legitimate?" "As legitimate as your inheritance, Clarence, though I actually earned mine." The insult hung in the air like smoke. Brandon cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Well, congratulations, Richard. That's quite an achievement." But he wasn't looking at me when he said it. He was looking at Erica, and there was something calculating in his expression, something that made my newfound wealth a problem rather than a celebration. "I should probably get going," Brandon said, standing abruptly. "Early surgery tomorrow." He kissed Erica's cheek goodbye, a little too long, a little too familiar, and shook my hand with considerably more respect than he'd shown an hour earlier. After he left, the dinner conversation limped along for another 30 minutes before Sammy excused herself to call friends, and Clarence retreated to his study to make some calls. Martha helped clear the table in stunned silence, occasionally glancing at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into her house. On the drive home, Erica was quiet. Too quiet. $12 million, she finally said as we pulled into our driveway. "And you didn't think to mention this to your wife?" "I wanted to surprise you." "Well, you certainly did that." She got out of the car and walked toward the house without waiting for me. "I have to go back to the hospital tonight. Emergency meeting about staffing schedules." It was 10:30 on a Saturday night. In 15 years of marriage, Erica had never had an emergency meeting about staffing schedules on a Saturday night. I watched her disappear into the house, and for the first time in my marriage, I wondered if my wife was lying to me. An hour later, I sat in my truck in the hospital parking lot, feeling like a fool and a stalker. Erica's BMW was nowhere to be seen, which meant either she'd parked in the employee garage or there was no emergency meeting. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Meeting running late. Don't wait up." I was about to drive home when I saw Brandon's silver Porsche pull into the lot. He parked in a far corner, away from the lights, and sat there for several minutes before a familiar BMW pulled up beside him. My wife got out of her car and into his. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. 15 years of marriage, and I was watching my wife climb into another man's car like a teenager sneaking out after curfew. They drove away together, and I followed at a distance, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. They ended up at the Riverside Inn, a boutique hotel on the outskirts of town. The kind of place that catered to business travelers with expense accounts and married couples looking for discretion. I watched from across the street as they walked into the lobby together, Brandon's hand on the small of Erica's back. I sat there for 2 hours, staring at the hotel entrance and trying to process what I'd seen. My wife, the woman who'd stood beside me in a church 15 years ago and promised to love, honor, and cherish me, was upstairs in a hotel room with another man. When they finally emerged, it was past 1 a.m. They stood by their cars, talking in low, urgent voices. Even from a distance, I could see the tension between them. This wasn't just a casual affair. There was something else going on. Brandon grabbed Erica's arm, and she pulled away sharply. They argued for several minutes before she got in her car and drove off. He followed a few seconds later. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with questions and implications. How long had this been going on? Did Sammy know? Did Martha and Clarence? Was I the last to figure out that my wife was cheating on me? When I got home, Erica's car was already in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, still dressed, making herself a cup of tea. "How was your meeting?" I asked. "Fine. Boring. You know how these administrative things go." She didn't look at me when she spoke. "You should get some sleep. It's late." "Erica." I waited until she turned around. "Is everything okay between us?" For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, fear, maybe even regret. But then the mask was back in place. "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" "I don't know. You've seemed distant lately, distracted." "I've had a lot on my mind with work. The hospital's going through budget cuts, and HR is handling most of the staff reductions. It's stressful." It was a reasonable explanation. It might even have been partially true. But I'd seen her get into Brandon's car. I'd seen them walk into that hotel together. "Maybe we should take a vacation," I said. "Now that the business sale is going through, we could afford to go somewhere nice. Switzerland, maybe. You said you'd always wanted to ski there." Her face went pale. "Switzerland?" Brandon mentioned it at dinner, said the skiing in Gstaad was incredible. I don't think I'm ready for a big trip right now. Maybe later, when things settle down at work." She kissed my cheek and headed upstairs. "I'm exhausted. See you in the morning." I stood in the kitchen for a long time after she left, staring at the cup of tea she'd abandoned on the counter. Steam rose from the surface like smoke signals, carrying messages I couldn't read. The next morning, I called my friend Tony Russo, my project foreman, and the closest thing I had to a best friend. Tony was a straight shooter who'd grown up in the same working-class neighborhood I had. He'd been with my company since the beginning, and I trusted him more than anyone. "Meet me at the Ledger," I said. "We need to talk." The Ledger was a dive bar on the south side of town, the kind of place where construction workers and mechanics went to drink beer and complain about their bosses. The bartender, Janine, was a 40-something former cop who'd seen everything and judged nothing. She served drinks, listened to problems, and kept her mouth shut about both. Tony was already there when I arrived, nursing a coffee and reading the sports section. He looked up when I sat down, and his expression grew serious. "You look like hell, Rich. What's going on?" I told him everything: the dinner, the hotel, the lies. Tony listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each detail. "Son of a bitch," he said when I finished. "How long you think this has been going on?" "I don't know. Months, maybe longer. I've been so focused on the business, I missed all the signs." "What signs?" "Working late more often. New clothes. She's been different, you know. More distant, but also more, I don't know, energetic. Like she had a secret that made her happy." "Yeah, the secret of screwing around on her husband." Tony signaled Janine for another round. "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know. Confront her? Get a lawyer? I keep thinking there might be some explanation, some reason that makes sense." "Rich." Tony's voice was gentle, but firm. "You saw them go into a hotel together at night. There's only one explanation for that." Janine brought our drinks and lingered at the table. "Couldn't help overhearing," she said. "You talking about your wife?" I nodded, too tired to be embarrassed. "Thought so. She's been in here a couple times with some fancy-looking guy. Doctor, from the way he talked. They seemed pretty cozy." My heart sank. "When?" "Last month, maybe 6 weeks ago, and again about 2 weeks back. They sat in the corner booth, heads together like they were planning something. Left separately, but..." She shrugged. "Let's just say it didn't look like a business meeting." Did you hear what they were talking about? Bits and pieces. Something about timing, about waiting for the right moment. The guy seemed worried about something, kept checking his phone. Your wife was trying to calm him down. Tony and I exchanged glances. Anything else? Yeah. The last time they were here, I heard her mention something about commitment. Said someone might need professional help, that it could be arranged through the hospital. A chill ran down my spine. Professional help? That's what she said. The guy, the doctor, he seemed to know what she meant. Said it would have to be handled carefully, documented properly. I felt sick. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning something. Something that involved the hospital. Something that required careful documentation. Janine, I said slowly, did you hear them mention any names? Just yours, honey. They mentioned Richard a few times. And something about assets, about making sure everything was protected. The pieces began falling into place with horrible clarity. My wife was having an affair with a doctor. They'd been meeting in secret, planning something that involved my commitment to professional care and the protection of assets. With my business sale going through, I was suddenly worth a lot more money than I'd ever been before. If Erica could have me declared mentally unstable, if she could get me committed for psychiatric evaluation, she could potentially gain control of my assets during divorce proceedings. And with a doctor as her accomplice, someone with the credentials to support claims about my mental state, it might actually work. Rich? Tony's voice seemed to come from far away. You okay, buddy? I looked at my oldest friend, this man who'd stood by me through years of struggling to build a business, who'd worked 16-hour days without complaint because he believed in what we were doing. Then I thought about Erica, who'd shared my bed for 15 years while planning to destroy me. No, I said. I'm not okay, but I'm going to be. What do you mean? I finished my beer and stood up. I mean, it's time to stop being the nice guy. If Erica wants to play games, I'll show her how it's done. The next few days passed in a strange, surreal haze. I went through the motions of normal life, work meetings, phone calls with lawyers about the business sale, dinners with Erica where we made small talk about nothing, while my mind raced with plans and possibilities. I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. Erica's phone, which she now guarded like state secrets. Her schedule, which had become increasingly erratic. Her mood, which swung between guilty nervousness and barely contained excitement. On Wednesday evening, she announced she was working late again. Another emergency meeting? I asked. Budget review. It's going to be a long night. After she left, I went to her home office and carefully searched through her desk. In the bottom drawer, hidden beneath old tax returns, I found a folder labeled Medical Consultation, Confidential. Inside were printouts of articles about psychiatric commitment procedures, involuntary mental health evaluations, and the legal rights of spouses during competency hearings. There were also notes in Erica's handwriting, observations about my behavior, dates and times when I'd seemed agitated or irrational, documentation of mood swings I didn't remember having. At the bottom of the folder was a business card for Dr. Patricia Henley, a psychiatrist who specialized in emergency mental health interventions. I photographed everything with my phone, then carefully replaced the folder exactly as I'd found it. That night, I called my lawyer, David Chen, and scheduled an emergency meeting. Rich, what's this about? David asked when I arrived at his office the next morning. We'd known each other since college, and he'd handled the legal work for my business from the beginning. I laid out everything. The affair, the hotel meetings, the folder, Janine's overheard conversations. David listened with growing concern. This is serious, he said when I finished. If they're planning to have you committed even temporarily, it could complicate the business sale and any potential divorce proceedings. Can they do it? Can a doctor just have someone committed based on his girlfriend's word? It's not that simple, but it's not impossible either. If Erica files a petition claiming you're a danger to yourself or others, And if Dr. Cates provides supporting medical opinion, a judge might order a temporary evaluation. During that time, your assets could be frozen, and Erica, as your spouse, might be granted temporary control. So, what do I do? David leaned back in his chair. We need to be proactive. First, I'm going to recommend you see your own psychiatrist, someone independent who can evaluate your mental state and provide documentation that you're competent. Second, we need to protect your assets. The business sale hasn't closed yet, which gives us some options. What kind of options? We can structure the deal differently. Instead of the money going directly to you, we can set up a trust or corporate structure that would be harder for Erica to access. It's perfectly legal, and given the circumstances, it's prudent. Over the next week, I followed David's advice. I met with Dr. Robert Martinez, a well-respected psychiatrist who conducted a thorough evaluation and pronounced me mentally sound. I restructured the business deal to protect the proceeds from the sale. And I continued to document Erica's behavior and movements. I also started spending more time at the ledger, partly because I needed somewhere to think, and partly because Janine had become an unexpected ally. She had a cop's instincts for reading people and situations, and she'd taken a personal interest in my case. Your wife was here again last night, she told me on Friday evening. With the doctor and another woman this time. Another woman? Yeah, blonde, maybe 45, professional looking like she worked at the hospital too. They were having a real intense conversation about you. I felt a chill. What did they say? The new woman seemed to be giving them advice about something. Legal stuff, from what I could tell. She kept talking about documentation and procedures, about how things had to be done properly to hold up in court. Did you get her name? Fiona something. The doctor called her Fi. Fiona. Erica's best friend from work, the hospital's legal affairs coordinator. If she was involved, this conspiracy went deeper than just an affair. They had legal advice, medical expertise, and institutional support. That night, I made a decision. I was tired of being reactive, tired of waiting for them to make their move. It was time to go on the offensive. I started with social media. Erica had always been active on Facebook and Instagram, posting pictures of our life together, our vacations, our achievements. But lately, her posts had become more personal, more emotional. She'd been sharing articles about marriage difficulties, about finding yourself after years of compromise, about the courage to make difficult changes. I screenshotted everything, building a timeline of her emotional journey toward betrayal. Next, I used our shared phone plan to access her call and text logs. The number of calls to Brandon had increased dramatically over the past 3 months. They were talking multiple times a day, often late at night or early in the morning. But the real breakthrough came when I checked our shared cloud storage account. Erica had been backing up her photos automatically, including ones she probably didn't mean to save. There were pictures of Brandon at the hospital, at restaurants, at the hotel where I'd seen them together. There were screenshots of romantic text messages, selfies taken in bed, photos of expensive gifts I'd never seen her wear at home. And there were photos of documents, the same articles about psychiatric commitment I'd found in her desk, along with others I hadn't seen. Plans for our divorce, asset evaluations, even a draft petition for mental health intervention that painted me as an increasingly unstable and potentially dangerous individual. According to the document, I'd been exhibiting paranoid behavior, mood swings, and aggressive tendencies. I'd been drinking more heavily, neglecting personal hygiene, and making irrational business decisions. The recent windfall from my business sale had allegedly triggered a manic episode that required immediate professional intervention. None of it was true, but it was written with clinical precision and supported by detailed observations. If presented to the right judge by the right doctor, it might be convincing enough to get me committed for evaluation. I printed everything and took it to David. "This is attempted fraud," he said after reviewing the documents. They're planning to use false psychiatric claims to manipulate legal proceedings. We could have them arrested. No, I said. Not yet. I want to see how far they're willing to go. Rich, this isn't a game. If they succeed in getting you committed even temporarily, it could destroy your life. They won't succeed. We know what they're planning now, which means we can stay ahead of them. But I want more than just stopping them. I want justice. David looked uncomfortable. What do you mean by justice? I mean, I want them to pay for what they've done. Not just the affair, but the planning, the conspiracy, the attempt to destroy my life for money. I want consequences. Be careful, Rich. Revenge has a way of backfiring. But I was past caring about caution. For 15 years, I'd been the accommodating husband, the hard worker, the man who kept his head down and tried to do right by everyone. It had gotten me a cheating wife and a conspiracy to steal my life's work. It was time for a different approach. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. On Monday morning, Erica announced that the hospital was hosting a charity gala on Saturday night, a black tie fundraiser for the children's cancer ward. It's a big event, she said over breakfast. All the major donors will be there, plus the hospital board and department heads. Brandon is being honored for his volunteer work with pediatric cardiac patients. Sounds important, I said neutrally. I assume we're going? Well, she hesitated. It's really more of a professional event. Spouses aren't typically invited unless they're major contributors. How much would I need to contribute to qualify? Rich, you don't need to. How much, Erica? The patron level is $25,000. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Done. I just transferred $25,000 to the hospital foundation. I guess that makes me a patron. Her face went pale. You didn't have to do that. Of course I did. My wife is being honored at a charity event. I wouldn't miss it for the world. That afternoon, I called the hospital's development office and spoke to the fundraising coordinator, a cheerful woman named Susan, who was thrilled to have a last-minute major donor. Mr. Forrest, your contribution is incredibly generous. We'd be honored to have you join us at the patrons' table. Will your wife be joining you? She will, and I'd like to make a brief speech, if that's possible, about the importance of supporting medical excellence. Of course, we always appreciate hearing from our donors. I'll add you to the program. When I told Erica about the speech, she looked like she might be sick. You're going to speak? About what? About the hospital, about the dedicated professionals who work there, about the importance of trust and integrity in medical care. Rich, maybe you should reconsider. Public speaking isn't really your strong suit. Don't worry about me, honey. I've got plenty to say. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. I had Tony help me research the hospital's board members, major donors, and key staff. I wrote and rewrote my speech, crafting each word carefully, and I made arrangements for the evening that would ensure maximum impact. On Saturday afternoon, I got a haircut, picked up my tuxedo from the cleaners, and stopped by the Ledger for a quick drink to calm my nerves. You sure about this? Janine asked as she poured me a whiskey. Once you light this fuse, there's no going back. I'm sure. They want to play games with my life? Let's see how they like being the entertainment. The gala was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Riverside Hotel. Ironically, the same hotel where I'd watched my wife disappear with her lover. The irony wasn't lost on me as I walked through the lobby where their affair had been consummated. Erica looked stunning in a black evening gown I'd never seen before. She was nervous, checking her phone constantly and scanning the crowd with anxious eyes. Looking for someone? I asked. Just, making sure everything's going smoothly. It's an important night for the hospital. Brandon appeared at her elbow, resplendent in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. Richard, good to see you. Erica mentioned you'd decided to join us. Very generous of you to support the children's ward. It's the least I can do. After all, I believe in supporting excellence wherever I find it. We made small talk for a few minutes, but I could see the tension between them. They kept exchanging glances, and Brandon seemed unusually on edge for a man being honored at a charity event. During cocktail hour, I worked the room like a politician, introducing myself to board members, donors, and hospital staff. I was charming, humble, and generous with my praise for the hospital's work. By the time we sat down for dinner, I'd established myself as a valued supporter and respected member of the community. The dinner proceeded smoothly through the first few courses. There were speeches from the hospital administrator, the head of pediatric oncology, and the chairman of the board. Brandon gave a gracious acceptance speech about his volunteer work, mentioning the importance of giving back to the community. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium with confidence, looking out at the 200 guests, doctors, nurses, administrators, donors, and community leaders. In the front row, Erica sat frozen with terror while Brandon tried to maintain his professional smile. "Good evening," I began. "I'm Richard Forrest, and I'm honored to be here tonight supporting such an important cause. Like many of you, I believe that children deserve the very best medical care, provided by professionals of the highest integrity and moral character." Polite applause rippled through the room. I've always believed that trust is the foundation of any relationship, between doctor and patient, between husband and wife, between friends and colleagues. When that trust is broken, the consequences extend far beyond the individuals involved. I paused, letting the words sink in. Erica was staring at me with growing horror. Recently, I've had occasion to reflect on the nature of trust and betrayal. You see, I discovered that some people I cared about were not who they pretended to be. They were living double lives, making secret plans, conspiring to deceive and manipulate others for personal gain. The room was completely quiet now. Brandon had gone pale. "Now, I know what you're thinking. This is supposed to be a celebration, not a therapy session. But bear with me, because this story has a point that I think you'll find relevant." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. You see, when someone betrays your trust, you have two choices. You can be a victim, or you can be a truth teller. Tonight, I choose truth. I opened the envelope and pulled out enlarged photographs, images I'd printed from Erica's cloud storage. The first was a picture of Brandon and Erica kissing in the hotel parking lot. A gasp went through the crowd. "This is my wife, Erica Forrest, head of human resources here at the hospital. And this is Dr. Brandon Cates, the man we're honoring tonight for his moral character and community service." I held up another photo, Brandon and Erica in bed together, taken as a selfie. But their affair, while personally devastating, isn't the worst part of this story. The worst part is what they plan to do to cover it up. I pulled out copies of the psychiatric commitment documents. They planned to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could steal the proceeds from my business sale, $12 million that I earned through 15 years of hard work. They documented fake symptoms, planned false testimony, and prepared to destroy my life to protect their secret and enrich themselves. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Board members were staring at Brandon in horror. Hospital administrators were frantically whispering to each other. Dr. Cates was going to use his medical credentials to support false claims about my mental state. My wife was going to use her position in hospital administration to facilitate the process. Together, they were going to commit fraud, perjury, and conspiracy. I held up the final document, the draft commitment petition with both their handwriting on it. This is the document they prepared to have me committed. Every word is a lie, but it's written with clinical precision by people who know how to manipulate the system. Brandon stood up suddenly. This is completely fabricated. I've never seen those documents before." "Really?" I smiled. "That's interesting because this petition has your handwriting on it, and these photos came from my wife's phone, automatically backed up to our shared cloud account. Would you like me to show the timestamps?" Brandon's face crumbled. He looked around the room desperately, then bolted for the exit. "Security!" someone called out, but Brandon was already gone. I turned back to the stunned audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for disrupting your evening, but I thought you should know what kind of man you were honoring tonight, and what kind of people are working in positions of trust at your hospital. I walked back to my table, where Erica sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face. Shall we go home, dear? I asked pleasantly. I think we have some things to discuss. The ride home was conducted in complete silence. Erica stared out the passenger window while I hummed softly to myself, feeling more relaxed than I had in weeks. The truth was finally out, and the weight of carrying their secrets was off my shoulders. When we pulled into our driveway, Erica finally spoke. How long have you known? Long enough. The question is, how long has it been going on? She didn't answer immediately. We sat in the car, engine ticking as it cooled, neither of us moving to get out. 8 months, she said finally. It started at a hospital conference in Chicago. And the plan to have me committed? That was Brandon's idea. When you announced the business sale, he panicked. He thought you might become suspicious if we suddenly had a lot of money to spend together. So you decided to steal my money instead. It wasn't supposed to be stealing. We thought if you were getting help, professional help, then when you were better, you'd understand. The money would still be there. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Erica, listen to yourself. You were planning to have me locked up based on lies so you could run away with your boyfriend and spend my money. There's a word for that. Theft. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. She turned to face me, her makeup smeared with tears. You want to know the truth? Fine. I've been unhappy for years, Rich. Years. You were so focused on your business, so obsessed with proving yourself to my family, that you forgot about me. About us. So you had an affair. So I found someone who paid attention to me, someone who made me feel alive again, who saw me as more than just a supportive wife applauding from the sidelines. And the conspiracy? That was... She faltered. Brandon was scared. He said if you found out about us, you'd try to destroy his career. He's up for department head next year, and a scandal would ruin everything. So you decided to destroy me instead. We weren't going to destroy you. The commitment would have been temporary, just long enough for us to figure things out. And the money, we would have made sure you were taken care of. I stared at her, this woman I'd loved for 15 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. Get out of my car, Erica. What? Get out of my car and out of my house. Tonight. Rich, you can't just... I can, and I am. You want a divorce? Fine, but you're not spending another night under my roof. She got out slowly, like she was in shock. I followed her into the house and watched as she packed a suitcase with shaking hands. Where will I go? I don't care. Hotel, your parents' house, Brandon's place if he'll still have you after tonight. Not my problem anymore. The hospital will fire me. After what you did tonight, they'll have to. Good. Maybe next time you'll think twice before conspiring to commit fraud. She finished packing and stood by the door, suitcase in hand. I never meant for it to go this far, Rich. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. And you were planning to hurt me a lot more. The only thing you're sorry about is getting caught. After she left, I poured myself a large whiskey and sat in my living room, surrounded by 15 years of shared memories. Wedding photos, vacation pictures, anniversary gifts, all of it felt like evidence of a life that had never really existed. My phone rang. It was Sammy. Dad? What the hell happened tonight? Mom called me crying, but she's not making any sense. I told her everything, gently but honestly. She deserved to know the truth about what her mother had done. I can't believe it, she said when I finished. Mom was really going to have you committed? Over money? Over a lot of things. The money was just part of it. Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea I knew you guys weren't as close as you used to be, but I never thought she'd do something like this. It's not your fault, sweetheart. And it's not your job to choose sides. She's still your mother. But what she did was wrong. Really, really wrong. Yes, it was. But that's between her and me. You focus on school and your own life. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and meetings. David worked on divorce papers and asset protection. The hospital launched an internal investigation into Erica's conduct. Brandon had apparently disappeared. Rumor had it he'd checked into a psychiatric facility himself, claiming stress-related breakdown. On Wednesday, I got a call from Detective Maria Santos with the police department's white-collar crime unit. Mr. Forrest, we'd like to discuss the documents you presented at the hospital fundraiser. If what you've alleged is true, we may be looking at conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, and filing false police reports. I have copies of everything, I told her. When would you like to meet? But before I could meet with the detective, I got an unexpected visitor. Fiona Walsh, Erica's friend and co-conspirator, showed up at my door on Thursday evening. We need to talk, she said. I let her in, curious to hear what she had to say. You've destroyed everything, she began without preamble. Erica's lost her job, Brandon's career is over, and now the police are involved. Are you happy? Actually, yes, I'm very happy. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. It was never supposed to go this far. The commitment thing was just a contingency plan. We never actually intended to use it. But you prepared it. You researched the procedures, documented false symptoms, and drafted legal papers. That's conspiracy, Fiona. That's a felony. She sat down heavily on my couch. The police want to interview me tomorrow. My lawyer says I could be charged as an accessory. You were an accessory. You helped plan the whole thing. I was trying to help my friend. She was miserable, Rich. You have no idea how unhappy she's been. So she should have asked for a divorce like a normal person. Instead, she chose to cheat and steal. Fiona was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up at me with something like desperation in her eyes. What do you want? There has to be something you want to make this go away. Make what go away? The truth? The charges, the investigation. You could tell the police it was all a misunderstanding, that you misinterpreted the documents. I laughed. Fiona, are you trying to bribe me? I'm trying to find a solution that doesn't destroy 3 lives. You should have thought about that before you helped plan to destroy mine. She left a few minutes later, and I called David to report the conversation. He advised me to record any future contact with the conspirators. On Friday, I met with Detective Santos and turned over all my evidence. She was thorough and professional, asking detailed questions about the timeline and my methods for gathering information. This is a solid case, she said when we finished. The documentation is extensive, and the intent is clear. We'll be filing charges early next week. What kind of charges? For your wife and Dr. Cates, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, and filing false documents. For Ms. Walsh, accessory to conspiracy. They're looking at serious jail time if convicted. As I drove home, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice was being served, but it came at the cost of everything I'd built over the past 15 years. My marriage was over, my wife's career was destroyed, and my family was shattered. But for the first time in months, I could sleep peacefully, knowing that the people who'd tried to destroy me were facing the consequences of their actions. The following Monday brought news that Brandon had been found dead in his apartment, an apparent suicide by drug overdose. He'd left a note confessing to the affair and the conspiracy, apologizing to his family and colleagues, and claiming he couldn't live with the shame of what he'd done. I felt no satisfaction in his death, only a hollow sadness for the waste of it all. A talented surgeon, whatever his flaws, was gone forever because he'd chosen deception over honesty. Erica called me that afternoon, sobbing. He's dead, Rich. Brandon is dead. He killed himself because of what you did at the gala. He killed himself because of what he did, Erica. I didn't make him have an affair with my wife. I didn't make him plan to have me committed. I just told the truth. You destroyed him. You destroyed all of us. You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure everyone knew about it. She hung up on me, but called back an hour later. The police want to interview me again tomorrow. My lawyer says they might arrest me. They might. Conspiracy to commit fraud is a serious charge. Rich, please, I'm begging you. Tell them it was all Brandon's idea, that I was just going along with it because I was scared of him. Were you scared of him? No. But I could say I was. I could say he threatened me, manipulated me into helping him. So, you want me to help you lie to the police now? After everything you've done? I want you to help me survive this. I made mistakes, but I don't deserve to go to prison. What did I deserve, Erica? Did I deserve to be betrayed by my wife? Did I deserve to have my sanity questioned and my freedom threatened? Did I deserve to be robbed of everything I'd worked for? She was quiet for a long moment. No, you didn't deserve any of that. Then we're done here. Face the consequences of your choices like an adult. The next day, Erica was arrested at her parents' house. The local news covered the story extensively. Hospital administrator charged in conspiracy against husband. The details were salacious enough to generate significant media attention, and the story went viral on social media. Martha called me that evening, her voice cold with fury. You've destroyed our family, Richard. Our reputation, our standing in the community. It's all gone because of your vindictive crusade. I told the truth, Martha. If that destroyed your reputation, maybe your reputation wasn't worth preserving. Erica made mistakes, but she doesn't deserve this public humiliation. She planned to have me committed to a psychiatric facility based on lies so she could steal my money and run away with her boyfriend. What exactly do you think she deserves? Forgiveness, compassion, the chance to make amends. She had 15 years to show me compassion. She chose betrayal instead. Clarence got on the phone. There has to be something we can do to fix this. Money, lawyers, connections. We have resources. Your resources won't help you here, Clarence. This isn't about money or connections. It's about justice. Justice? You've turned our daughter into a national laughingstock. You've destroyed her career, her future, her life. She did that herself. I just made sure everyone knew about it. The trial began 3 months later. Erica pled not guilty, claiming she'd been manipulated by Brandon and that the conspiracy documents were his idea. Fiona pled guilty to accessory charges in exchange for testifying against Erica. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through the timeline of discovery, the evidence I'd gathered, and the impact of the conspiracy on my life. Erica's lawyer tried to paint me as a vindictive husband seeking revenge, but the documentation was too extensive and detailed to dismiss. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all charges. Erica was sentenced to 3 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 months. After the sentencing, I found myself standing outside the courthouse with Tony and Janine, watching as Erica was led away in handcuffs. "How do you feel?" Tony asked. I thought about it for a moment. Empty, relieved, sad, all at the same time. Any regrets? About exposing them? No. They made their choices, and they have to live with the consequences. But I regret that it came to this. I regret that 15 years of marriage ended with my wife going to prison. She brought it on herself, Rich. You didn't have any other choice. Maybe, but it doesn't make it easier. We walked to the Ledger for a drink. The bar was mostly empty in the late afternoon, just a few regulars nursing beers and watching sports on the television. Janine poured me a whiskey without being asked. So what now? Now I try to rebuild my life. The business sale went through, so I have financial security. Sammy's doing well in college. I have good friends and my health. It could be worse. You could find someone new, Tony suggested. There are good women out there, women who wouldn't betray you. Maybe someday. Right now, I'm not sure I trust my judgment about women. Your judgment was fine, Janine said firmly. You married someone who seemed trustworthy and turned out not to be. That's not your fault. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the afternoon light fade through the bar's windows. I thought about the past year, the discovery, the planning, the confrontation, the trial. It had consumed my life, driven every decision I'd made. Now it was over, and I had to figure out what came next. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Sammy. Dad, saw the news about the sentencing. Are you okay? I typed back, I'm fine, sweetheart. Justice was served. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Mom was wrong to do what she did. Thank you. That means a lot. Love you, Dad. Love you too. I put the phone away and finished my drink. Outside, the city was coming alive with evening activity. People heading home from work, couples meeting for dinner, families spending time together. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of the drama that had just concluded in the courthouse a few blocks away. I thought about Erica, probably sitting in a jail cell right now, contemplating the choices that had brought her to this point. I thought about Brandon, whose grave I'd never visit, whose family I'd never meet. I thought about Fiona, who'd received probation and community service but would never work in hospital administration again. All of their lives had been destroyed by greed, lust, and the arrogant belief that they were smarter than everyone else. They'd thought they could manipulate the system, steal my money, and destroy my life without consequences. They'd been wrong. I stood up, left money on the bar, and walked outside into the cool evening air. Tomorrow, I would start the process of rebuilding my life. I would sell the house where my marriage had died, find a new place to live, maybe travel for a while. I would learn to trust again, to love again, to believe in the possibility of happiness. But tonight, I would go home to my empty house and raise a glass to justice served and debts paid in full. The underdog had kept his own ledger after all, and the accounts were finally balanced.